Hey everyone, Adam here with another RimWorld guide. In my recent playthroughs, I've had a ton of people ask me how I get raiders to come in where I want them, one at a time, instead of bunching up and overwhelming my base. I've also seen countless people complain about normal raids attacking their walls or the geothermals. As much as I don't mind answering repeat questions on the stream, I've decided to go ahead and make a guide about this topic, so here's everything you might want to know about unit pathing and collision in RimWorld. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that I have decided to donate money made from these guides to Doctors Without Borders. They're an amazing charity that really knows how to stretch each dollar to the fullest. So thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing. It helps out both the channel and this awesome charity group. So, how do I make raiders go into my kill area? The ideal way to bait standard raiders to your defenses is to have a pathable colonist or zonable animal. A single squirrel can lure an entire maximum size raid. It doesn't matter if your base is big or small, it doesn't matter what direction the raid spawns from, it doesn't even matter if there's a complex maze the raiders have to go through before reaching that squirrel. All that matters is that they have an unbroken path to the target. A standard raider that cannot find a pathable target will start attacking random walls, doors, and things like that. So what I mean by a standard raider is a non-sapper, non-breacher. Attacking tribals, outlanders, pirates, empire, and mechs fall into standard raiders as long as they aren't sappers or breachers. When a raid occurs, be sure to immediately check the raid letter to see if the raid is a sapper or breacher type raid. If you accidentally closed it, you can always go back to this by going to your history button, then clicking the message tab, and the letter will be right there. So what do I mean by pathable? Pathable means that the enemy is capable of walking from their current location all the way to the target as if they were going to melee them. It doesn't mean the enemy will try to path there and then melee punch them, just that they could path there and melee punch them. So yes, even long-range snipers and mech pikemen follow the same set of rules. So what all blocks pathing? Basically just walls and closed doors. Unlike open doors, barricades, sandbags, chunks, fences, animal pens, and some other objects, none of those actually block pathing. Alright, so what all counts as a target for a standard raider? Targets include colonists, any zonable animal, any furniture like a production bench, lights, power generators, tables, etc. This is one reason I like to leave a door open to my dining and rec area, as long as the temperature is nice out, or even place an open air dining area behind my defensive line. Because as I mentioned earlier, if an enemy does not have an unblocked path to a target, they will start attacking randomly, which may allow them to break a wall and let other raiders pour in from a direction you didn't expect. It can also be super annoying to have random raiders attack your walled-in geothermal generators out on the map. Walls, doors, floors, columns, fences, farm animals, animal pen markers, anima trees, nature shrines, conduits, none of those things are actually valid targets. It is also important to understand that there are two target types. Knowing this will help you dictate just how you should set up your base to ensure all the standard raiders come in where you want them to. So first off, we have combatant targets. So combatant targets include colonists, any zonable animals, and powered turrets. All enemies can path toward a single combatant. If you have an open path to a squirrel and no other targets, all the enemies will path at that squirrel. Then there are what I like to call junk targets. Junk targets include everything else. Tables, chairs, production benches, power facilities like the geothermal I mentioned, and even unpowered turrets. Not all enemies can path at a single piece of junk though. Each piece of junk can only attract so many enemies. So if you are facing large raids and trying to bait them with junk, you may need a lot of it, hence my open air dining setup I mentioned earlier. Don't expect a 200 enemy tribal raid to all go after a single chair as if it were a squirrel. Immediate attack raids choose their target instantly. If you want enemies to path to a certain location, like a Killbox for instance, you need that Killbox properly baited before the enemy arrives on your map. An immediate attack raid without targets will attack random walls and doors. The raiders won't change targets if you provide bait after they've already chosen that target. Well, until they completely destroy the target or if they take damage. I recommend either using a small zonable animal like a squirrel, rat, tortoise, or similar as bait, or holding open doors to the main rooms of your base Held open doors to the main area of the base usually create pathable colonists, or at worst, paths to lots of the junk targets I mentioned earlier, such as the tables and chairs. I don't recommend using a power turret as the bait, however. A single power turret can lure an entire raid, but a power turret creates an issue with enemy collision. So what do I mean by collision? Collision refers to when an enemy raider, mechs, or manhunting animals can't stand on top of each other. Enemies have collision when the game considers the enemies as in combat. When the game considers enemies outside of combat, enemies can actually stack on top of each other in great numbers. Dozens of enemies can be in a single tile when enemies do not have collision. Stacked enemies that are granted collision can suddenly balloon out in comical but devastating fashion. Here's an example of a melee blocking setup against 80 huskies. This is what happens to a melee block setup when the enemies gain collision too late. This is bad. Collision is activated when enemies are within range of combat. However, for some reason, closed doors do not fully block that range. So if you place a colonist or a zonable animal, or even a turret, now the huskies politely line up and attack one at a time, waiting for their death. These enemies are given collision when they are within range of the squirrel, even though the squirrel is behind a closed door. I recommend having a nearby door in the path that leads up to your defenses. This example has 2 such doors, and either one can work just fine. You can then place a colonist, a zonable animal, or a turret behind such a door to activate collision. You can also place 4 doors around a single square and place an unpowered turret or even zonable animal inside. This doored-in unpowered turret will activate collision. This method is my favorite to do, and you'll see it a ton in my playthroughs here on YouTube and Twitch. Of course, you can generally get a random zonable animal way earlier than a turret, so I recommend grabbing a squirrel or something early that you can use for both bait and then collision as you need. Hopefully this RimWorld guide has helped answer any questions about enemy pathing and collisions you might have had. If I missed anything or you have any questions at all, be sure to post a new comment down below the video. I do reply to all of them. There are a few more technical things that I did not include in this video guide, but you can read over them in the written version if you want at my website, adamversuseverything.com/guides. If you enjoyed this RimWorld guide or it helped you at all, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, leaving a comment down below, and sharing it with others. Also, I wanted to give an extra shout out to Smurph from my Discord, who has been instrumental in helping get more of these guides out on the channel. You might recognize him from the RimWorld subreddit or Discord, where he takes credit for strategies I come up with. Only joking, of course, mostly. Auto bong defense. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching.